22nd of May with a boring and annoying voting guide. And here's your host, me, Greg Shapiro. Hi, everybody. It's me, Greg Shapiro, the American Netherlander and executive comedian. And I think I'm coming through loud and clear now. Yes? Good, good, good. This week we are revealing the shocking truth behind the European elections. It's a lot like the American elections. It all comes down to just two guys. More on that in a minute. But first, the news. The EU parliamentary elections are upon us, which you may have noticed due to the billboards, mostly filled with parties that you've probably never heard of. The election so far is indeed so uninteresting that even the parties you have heard of can't really be bothered to put up their own posters. Election day in Europe is scheduled not on one single day, but on different days, depending on which country you're in. According to officials in Brussels, we wanted to send a message to the world. Anytime we can do things in an unnecessarily complicated and long-winded, unnecessarily redundant style way, we will. And yet, the EU might be more relevant than you might think. In a landmark ruling, the European Court of Justice in Luxembourg demanded that Google must let users erase records from search results on the web if requested. Google complied immediately by removing any links to search requests. For EU court in Luxembourg lets users erase records on the web. In other news, the Anti-Defamation League reports that half of all the world's adults have never heard of the Holocaust. For the record, half the world's adults live in countries that don't have a lot of internet access always, and they might not have heard of events even like Tiananmen Square or Hindu nationalist riots. More shockingly, however, the ADL also reported that anti-Semitism does exist in Europe. Mostly, the highest recorded rate in Southeast Europe, specifically in Greece, where approximately 69% of people are qualified as anti-Semitic. Ironically, the one country who is kind of screwing over the Greeks financially right now is the one place where you're least likely to find a lot of Jewish people. Don't mention the war. I mentioned it once, but I think I got away with it. Meanwhile, in the Middle East, President Obama says he is taking a pause and now waiting for the Israelis and Palestinians to make the first move. President Obama also said he is waiting for the Ukrainians and the Russian separatists to make the first move. Obama is also waiting for Syria to make the first move. President Obama is busy, okay? Now, how are the EU elections like the American elections? Well, because there really are only two candidates. So don't pay attention to the big election board. Yes, that's the one. I captured that photo myself, so it ain't great. But this is what you might be looking at. It's like a bunch of different parties. It gets confusing quickly, but we'll get back to that. Now, I mentioned it all comes down to two guys, and while these two guys have been getting a lot of press, either Farage or Wilders, it doesn't come down to them either. In fact, it all comes down to this guy. Yes, this guy is Barroso, and he is the president of the EU Commission, right? That's the commission, the closest thing that we have in Europe to the administration of the president, like in the US. Now, starting on the 22nd of May, you can vote to replace this guy, Barroso. But you can't vote directly. It is Europe, after all, and that would be too easy. Sort of like the Electoral College in America. What? Yes, it's not actual direct voting for president. in America either. But that's the thing. First, you have to vote for the EU Parliament. It's a lot of seats. It's impressive. Now, in America, you have just two parties. In America, I know we tried a third party, but it just confused people. Americans were like, which one do I hate? So let's take a look at the lot of parties. We've got Jeremy doing a very good job here of keeping up with me. Did I send you the changes? Probably not. Now, this, again, is a little bit difficult to decipher on your screen, but this is basically a graph of all of those seats, how they break down. There are a lot of different parties, but they've formed coalitions. These coalitions have nothing to do with the posters that you see on the streets of Europe. So if you want to follow, this is what you got to look at. And you can see that there basically is one big red area, there's one big blue area, and those are the two big coalitions. It's just like in America, they've even chosen the same colors. You got red, you got blue. Yeah, unlike America, red means socialist. And yeah, that's Europe style. And blue is more like the Christian center right, AKA EPP. Now, there are a lot of candidates as well. There's like a candidate for every one of those different coalitions and colors that you just saw, but it really comes down to just a two-way race between these two guys. You got Juncker and you got Schultz. And let's take a look at both of them. In fact, you can see how the polling is doing here, I think. Did we bring that up? Yes. All these little colors down here, those are the, well, smaller coalitions in European Parliament. But it's a neck-and-neck race between these two parties, the blue and the red, between these two guys, Juncker and Schultz. Let's take a look at Jean-Claude Juncker, former prime minister of the country of Luxembourg, and he's really just about as interesting as the photo that we show here. He's also best known for being, more recently, the head of the Euro Group. What's that? It's the head of all of the finance ministers in the European Union. The one guy who saved the European Union, but also caused a lot of austerity in the European Union. And so, yeah, he is going to promise more of that if brought in to replace Barroso. Next up, you got Schultz. Oh, sorry, Juncker. Juncker is also, he can be interesting when he's yelling at things. Schultz is interesting because he is a German guy. He is not from the biggest party in Parliament right now, but he is the president of the European Parliament. So you might say he's got the biggest shot of replacing Barroso. He is best known for shouting down Berlusconi at one point and saying that Berlusconi really is just crooked and a cheat and does not deserve to be in charge of anything. Yeah, it was refreshing for a lot of people. I believe Berlusconi then retorted that, well, he's German, so he must be some kind of Nazi. And we would never do that on this show. Don't mention the war. Got it. Will the government have any effect on big business? That is what it comes down to again. But as we said, government versus big business not having much effect. It's just like America.